Shout out to US ARC and all US ARC members. If you don't know what US ARC is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what US ARC is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a US ARC member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with US ARC organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a US ARC member. And if you can't become a US ARC member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what US ARC is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every US ARC member and US ARC supporter out there.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world, episode 688. Trap Talk with Patrick Holmes, Dave D, John Irby. Holy shit, what a loaded lineup for tonight's episode. We're all in for a treat. Yep, especially if you recently inquired about a $500 blue line on MORPH Market. Oh, sit tight. You're going to love this episode. No, but seriously, guys, lots of learning on tonight's episode. We all know the Chondro game's up and blowing up. And, you know, for a lot of you guys out there who's even inquired through me on IG and anything else, you know, wondering how to get a true line of something, we're going to cover all that tonight. And I feel like I picked the best guys in the game to definitely go over the blue line stuff in the Chondro game, man. But what's good? I'm your boy, MJ. Happy Thursday. I love Thursdays, man. This is what it's all about. It's all about the learning in this hobby. And, you know, it's 8 years in the game. I still feel like there's so much I need to learn, and that's what I love about this. So, yeah, you guys are in for a treat. Please go give me a follow on Instagram, TrapTalkGod619, if you want to see everything that I have going on, and if you want exclusive content, more behind the scenes, more deeper dive of my future projects, come join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Simply click the first link in the description below, and then as soon as you do that, you get connected to a Discord, and there's an awesome Instagram group chat connection with global trappers everywhere around the world. So appreciate you, Patreon members. You guys are my heart, man. Appreciate everyone in the chats, man. The chats are cracking tonight. All right. So listen, again, lots to learn tonight. There might be a lot of questions. If you have a question in the chats, if you want to make sure I cover it, if I don't catch it, drop a super chat. Any amount, doesn't matter. And I'll make sure I drop that question or topic that you might have for all the boys tonight, because we're going to get deep on some of this lineage talk and how to make sure you are investing your money in with the right person selling what you're looking for. Plain and simple, right? It's all about guidance. And yeah, I'm very stoked on putting you guys on game from some of the best doing it right now. So, all right, listen, let's get to the sponsors of tonight's episode. One of them being one of my favorites in the game. That's Brian Susan, fresh off a trip over there in Indo. And lots of amazing footage going to be coming from Sundown Reptiles. I suggest go follow him on Instagram and also check out all his amazing productions. True captive bred, high quality productions from Brian Susan, tree monitors, kahuas, gargoyle geckos, abronia. The list goes on, man. Go check him out. Sundown Reptiles. Check out his website in the description below. Also, tonight's episode is brought to you by Gary Scavino from GS Reptiles, one of my favorite people to learn from on YouTube when it comes to keeping chondros, emerald tree boas, bolins, all the unique cool stuff that people just sleep on. I'm telling you right now, go check him out. GS Reptiles on YouTube. Subscribe. Follow him on Instagram. Also, check him out on MORPH Market. Never know what he's going to drop on there because it does not last. All right. And I just recently got some heat from Gary. Stoked. It's doing great. Thank you so much, Gary. Always wanted a Gary Scavino production. So appreciate you so much, Gary. Also, tonight's episode is brought to you by the Reptile Perch. So if you got a chondro, if you got an arboreal snake, man, make sure you go to the reptileperch.com and purchase that perch from the man who's been designing them from the get-go. He's an OG in the game when it comes to perches. And so, yeah, appreciate you, David Brahms. Everything behind me is on a David Brahms perch. So again, that's reptileperch.com, and you can check him out on IG. Check out all his productions. He produces some of the nicest monocories in the game. So thank you so much, David Brahms over at the Reptile Perch. And then last but not least, shout out to Mark Hager. All right. Shout out to my man doing good work and doing the God's work behind the yellow neonates, and big things coming from the Morph Market YouTube channel next week, because I'm finally dropping that Mark Hager vlog, complete room tour. He shows me some of his holdbacks from last year, some of his projects that he has going on for this upcoming season. Lots to watch on that vlog. So just be ready for that. But also make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram. Follow him because he puts on so many other amazing Texas keepers like Patrick and all of them, even up and coming chondro keepers out of Texas. So he's the man, dude. He's doing big things. So thank you so much, Mark Hager, over at Texas Chondros. Also check out his website in the link in the description below. Yeah, check out all my other sponsors too, man. Very blessed. Shout out to all my sponsors, all the ongoing support for this network. And I just want to remind you guys, if you're more on the audio side of things, I know not everyone's a big YouTube fan, so make sure you remember that you can listen to all these episodes on all major audio platforms, okay? So there's Buzzsprout, there's Apple Podcasts, there's Spotify, and we are 7 days a week on this network, okay? Well over a year going strong. The only reptile network in history to be 7 days a week. Let's go. Shout out to all my other hosts of the weeks. You guys are amazing. You guys are beautiful. But all right, enough is enough. People in the chats, you guys are beautiful. But I need you guys to do me a favor. You guys know what that is. All right, do what you gotta do to get your mind right, and do what you gotta do to stay hydrated for episode 688. What makes a true blue line? Feel it. Just hear it from the best. See you next time. Choo!
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man,
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
exclusive. Oh,
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, God love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up, rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up, rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up, rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up.
and we're live, episode 688. Welcome back, gentlemen. All of you. No stranger to Trap Talk. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Patrick, it's okay. You can say thank you. You can speak, Patrick. We all know, like, don't act like you don't want to talk first and foremost. Go ahead and say hi, Patrick.
Look, what I'm going to say is I have to apologize in advance because I'm half brain dead right now because I've had a long week. And maybe all that means is somebody else will get a chance to talk tonight.
All right. And okay, let's put Dave on blast now. What's up, Dave?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Oh, it's an honor to have you here amongst Patrick and John. And, obviously, when it comes to the blue line topic, I mean, first and foremost, I don't know who else comes to mind as quick as you three, but, I feel like it's about time we do something on the record to kind of explain, first and foremost, what is a blue line? And, if you were inquiring a blue line, where to look at. And so, Dave, obviously, if we could just start with you, that's your, from what I understand, having you on the show multiple times, everything started with blue line stuff from you, correct? Or no?
No, I wouldn't say that. I just got the most extreme looking designers I could, and that's a mix of blue line, calico, and then I got tiger stripe stuff from Rico.
So with your blue line stuff, what is it attached to as far as like the history with blue line lineage? Like what is it, affiliated with?
Yeah, there were three main people I got my blue line snakes from. Rico is one, and he had a Mr. Blue Carolina male that sired some clutches, and his male was pretty much green. But Mr. Blue Carolina was one of the foundation clutches of the blue line, so he got some good offspring off that. And then he had a male called Blue Max. I think he might have been on loan. I'm sure Patrick and John know more about that, but he has some, he produced some really nice stuff with Blue Max and Blue Max's offspring. He did a really good job of outcrossing to Manikwari and some other stuff. So he really strengthened it that way. And then I got quite a few from Christian Stewart, and his line is a little different. It goes back one more generation. So he doesn't, or he didn't at the time have a lot of Mr. Blue stuff. His line stemmed from Daddy Pants and Tim Morris Blue Female, who was Mr. Blue's mother. And then the third person I got a bunch of blue snakes from was Brad Johnson of Brass Jungle Arboreals, and he had a really nice blue male called Sky, and Sky was from Mr. Blue in Carolina.
And then with your stuff, John, obviously, I know a lot of it's strongly from the barn, right? From what I understand. If you could kind of tell me exactly where a lot of that stuff originated from what you know.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, my stuff is probably built out of a lot of the stuff. It is built out of stuff from the barn and a lot of stuff from Dave. Dave was very fortunate to get, Rico passed away, and right about simultaneously at that same time, Brad Johnson was, I don't know if he was publicly doing it or willing to do it, and Dave inquired about it. But anyway, he was also parting with some animals. And so Dave was able to acquire a large collection of really or maybe, I don't know if large, but anyway, just an assembly of some of the best animals and brought together a couple of collections. So that was, I thought I'd back up and say that. I mean, that's kind of what this developed into being. What I'm saying is, so that was just huge for the blue line in general. That was just a huge, maybe we can talk more about that in general. Like there were some events that almost like saved it, like things are like certain clutches and things were just so pivotal. But anyway, one of the really healthy things for the line was Dave bringing together some of those really incredible animals that he did. And I got animals off of those. I kind of knew the quality of those and the significance of that, and made sure I bought some of those early offspring that he produced. And that's where like Mercury and Moonshine and Banjo and some of those animals came from. And then Christian also was really fortunate in that he was able to pull together some iconic animals. His uncle is Tim Morris, and then they also just had quite the Chondra collection there themselves at the barn. And and Tim Morris was friends with Buddy Goexker, or I hope that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, and that's who owned Daddy Pants. And then they, and Trooper Walsh. And it's all this big confluence of stuff because Trooper lived in the Northern Virginia area and worked at the National Zoo. So if you really want to back it on up, then so that's how Trooper was there and in that position just geographically, and that's how he met Tim Morris, and they all that kind of network of people, and John Holland, who owned Mr. Blue, and all of them lived in Maryland. And so anyway, Christian also lives in Maryland, and his uncle, and there you go. And because of Tim Morris, who produced Mr. Blue, and with Trooper Walsh animals, Christian has a big boatload, or has had at times, different groups of blue line animals, and I've got stuff off of him too.
Did Trooper or Tim or any of those realm of like gentlemen that you just mentioned, did they call it blue line? Was it them that called it the blue line? Like that's something that they started calling, or how did the blue line get named that? I mean, obviously I get it's blue, but I'm just curious who even started naming it.
They're not those old heads aren't as hung up on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even, that might fall out of their mouth, but it's not something distinct enough that I'd even remember. they just might call them like a snake, like come check this blue snake out, or whatever.
Mhm.
Now I do know if they had one that went solid blue, they were so novel at that time, and they were coining the phrase super blue. I think, Trooper or Tim would have said, come out and look at this super blue, because if it really did the thing and there just weren't any others out there, they were pretty special. So I think that, yeah.
All right. Well, Patrick, you're here for a very good reason. I mean, I feel like if there's any question to a fucking ID, I don't know, I could go to you and you basically know everything about that ID, which is very impressive. But and also I know you got so much different stuff, like on stuff I can't even remember what you have within your own chondro collection. I know Blue Line's in there, so why don't you give us a little bit of the history with your Blue Line stuff and from what you recall, like the original Blue Line that first crossed your mind and whatnot.
Sure, and I can actually touch on a couple of things that both of these guys just said as well. So, and all of these things are things that we can kind of elaborate on as we go through. So the blue line that we traditionally call blue line refers to what is traditionally called the Walsh blue line, or TW blue line for Trooper Walsh. And an interesting side note about that, because since the whole subject is what makes something a line and at what point do you call it a line and whether or not something is a blue line, we call it the Walsh blue line, but it's my understanding. I wasn't
I think
around
we named it that.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Trooper said that. I've heard Trooper say that he wasn't
It was
calling
just
it
mixing
that.
every blue snake he had together,
Well, and so occasionally you will hear people talk about the Al Zulich blue line, because from my understanding, it was the introduction of blue animals from Al that actually is how Trooper began to produce blue snakes in the first place, or at least that was an important, the blue line probably wouldn't have turned into what it was were it not for the introduction of the blood from Al Zulich.
Yeah, well,
And,
right. Original Sib to Sib pair and all that stuff.
Yes, and so that goes, if you dig deep into the Walsh blue lineage, that's going to be some of the earliest stuff in there. Is the introduction of those, what were they, like AZ 14 and 15 or something?
Yeah.
Somewhere along those lines. And
I think amongst those, the old heads that they just slang call it the blue line, for the most part, feel like they're talking about that line. This line bred stuff that originated from all that work that was kind of going on right back then.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing about this is, like, it's not a simple subject. This is very complicated. These lines have been outcrossed very heavily, and some of the outcrossings have just completely depleted, like, basically any chance of producing blue snakes. And on the other side of that, conversely, just as Dave was mentioning, and I don't know that anybody did this as well or as consistently as Rico did, but Rico did a really good job of heavily diversifying some Walsh blue stuff and maintaining the integrity and extreme phenotypes in that line. And just to give a couple of great examples, he had the animal that Dave mentioned, the almost entirely green Mr. Blue Carolina male. I used to know the TW ID and Trooper's ID. Trooper's ID was like 02162 or something like that for that male, I think. And
right. They have it in a pedigree, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And that animal was extremely green with a little bit of blue shading on his sides, really pretty. And he bred that animal to 00069, which was a PNG line female. And there have been some blue animals in the PNG line. PNG stands for Papua New Guinea, and it does not refer to a locality. It refers to animals that came out of the Papua side of the island, and they were was all kinds of stuff that came out of there. And it mostly refers to animals that the lines go back to zoo bred stuff, Dallas Zoo, Fort Worth Zoo, etc. And Rico had a lot of that blood, and there were some neat snakes in there. And that blood, Rico liked to outcross that stuff to all different kinds of stuff, and he got great results because they were already mutts. So you got really neat stuff that happened no matter what you put to it. And he bred that Mr. Blue Carolina male to 00069, two very green animals, and he got 05188 out of that pairing. And 05188 is one of the most famous and most extreme and most amazing designer chondros ever. And the photos there's a single photo that most people are familiar with where he's got some nice kind of teal blue, but he's got a lot of black. Rico had a lot of snakes that when they made it to his website, they had not fully changed. But if you ever got to go over there or see little shots of pairings he was doing, he had a bunch of snakes that were solid blue animals that he just never really posted them after they matured and became blue. 05188 as a mature snake was solid black and blue. He turned into he was just solid black and blue.
I have no doubt about it.
All his green turned blue. I've got pictures I could dig up somewhere of that snake maybe when he was with Chris Haight. Anyways,
I got Frostbite, who's a descendant of. I think I view him as an amped up version of 05188 blood. That's kind of what he is. And man, he just keeps packing the blue on, and he just is just continually adding it. So when you say, I bet you 05188 was icy blue by the end. I'm sure.
Yes, and he retained a lot of black. He of course had less black than he did in the most well-known picture of him. That's arguably he's one of my two favorite designers ever. If I had to pick a pair of my favorite designers, it's him as the male and that insane blue, black, and white thing that Dave used to have over there. And
she was hormonal.
Yeah, still actually, yes, yeah. Crazy snowflake. She was that animal was something else, man. But anyways, I'm glad that you brought up that particular animal, John, of yours, because one of the things we see is descendants of 05188 who had green parents that are multiple generations away from 05188 and still showing some of the crazy traits. Like you can look at an animal, Frank's good at it too. Like you can look at this animal and just clearly see the traits showing up, 2 and 3 generations away. That's incredible to me. To me, that's one of the hallmarks of calling something a line. I don't think there's a hard definition for what a line is. Sure. I heard it said the other day, and I thought this is kind of an interesting way to look at it. I don't 100% agree, but it's I thought it was funny. Maybe Bill said it, that like it's a line when somebody else names it a line or something, not if you start calling it that yourself or whatever. But
it doesn't count if you name it yourself or some shit.
Yeah, but the thing is that what makes it a line, if you attach a descriptive term to the word line, like blue line, is that it's from lineage, multiple generations that consistently produce that trait. High yellow line, blue line. It was said the other day by Alex Warren. He's not the only person that says this. Lots of people say that to call it blue line, it needs to be Walsh blue lineage and have a decent percentage of that. And I said that I disagree. I think there's multiple blue lines. I think we can create new blue lines. I think it's being done now. And, so I don't think you have to be beholden to that definition.
Like they want a trademark or put a little TM on the end of blue line. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the same. That's the slang. That's a couple of the words that just don't have the prefixes attached to it. Like that really, and that's what I meant. Like amongst the bros, when we say blue line, we all kind of, you know, because if it was anything other, you know, like everybody would know if I was saying that I'm all talking about the trooper line, unless I articulated anything on top of it. And so when I say
or whatever,
dude, I'm not trying to attach that to the trooper only line. That's me just slanging out the second half of the sentence and omitting the articulation, whether I were going to say like, oh, that's a Vinsky, but anything you were to take, man, if you can just defend it as distinct, like, and in fact, I wouldn't want my shit to be intermingled. I mean, I wouldn't mind it bred with the Trooper Walsh, but I would want to make sure I'd be bold. I mean, my shit would be the House of Blue line, or the fucking the Vinsky blue line, or the whatever. I would be like, man, I'm working my own shit.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. And I'm going, okay, if it ain't a blue line, I'm gonna make it one, damn it. You know, that's would be my attitude. And I would, through hard work, get it there.
Well, right, because we all know, I mean, we all the whole blue line thing was created from animals that were pulled from the wild. So I mean, you could create your own blue line in a sense. It's just not as easy as the ways people are just slapping these names onto some of these morph market ads. Is what I feel like one of the biggest confusions. You know, is like getting an animal that is hormonal blue, and you know, let's say you want to flip the animal, and then you're calling it a blue line of some sort just because it has blue in it. You know, or what about this? And this is a legit question. I mean, obviously, all three of you guys have sold snakes that turn blue. I mean, some of you are notorious for it, but I'm sure, Patrick, even with you, have sold snakes that have gone like high blue or something crazy with all the stuff you work with. But if you were to get one of those animals and put it back to another blue animal, is that a blue line of some sort? Like, I mean, when you have two blue animals that you breed together, like at what point can you call those babies that you're producing a blue line of something?
I think their appearance should speak for itself. I don't try to use these terms a lot. I don't like to say certain snakes are super blue or true blue or whatever. I think people need to use a little bit of common sense when they're parting with their money and look at what the parents look like. Were they green? Were the great-grandparents green? If you have 3 successive generations of green snakes, how much sense does it make for you to believe that they're going to turn blue? If you're buying jungle carpet pythons, you wouldn't buy brown ones hoping that their babies are going to be yellow, unless for some reason their parents were super nice. But I don't know, for some reason with these chondros and blue ones in particular, people buy snakes that kind of a ripoff, you know? And like you said, when I buy snakes, I look at the appearance of the snake first and foremost. And then maybe it's not so extreme, but its parents are extreme. And then if I'm looking at pictures of the parents and we're talking about a blue snake, I'm going to try and figure out why it's blue. Is it blue because they took the picture of them in the shade or under cloud cover? Is it a female that has had multiple clutches? And sometimes females can be hormonal without even producing a clutch. Or is it a male that's 15 years old and turned blue because it's old as fuck? So you just have to use a little common sense.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't take under consideration is and I don't often use the term hormonal to describe males, but because it's traditionally used for like the cycle that a female breeding goes through, but it's probably a hormonally related thing that chondros of both sexes change colors as they age. Beox go black when they get old. You should see what Kink looks like right now versus what she looked like when I got her in 2019. I was checking her out today. She's just so black. She's completely washed out in black.
That older Beox I've got that's produced 2 clutches from that Brian produced off of Tarzan.
Yes.
She was just like a limey green Beox. When I look back at old pictures of her, she was a lot of yellow. And man, she's dirty and mean looking now. I was looking at her the other day.
Yeah.
And so look, male chondros can turn blue too. With just with age. There's I
think male chondros can gain it. Like I think they're packing on for the blue line stuff, like till 10 maybe.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean animals. What I'm saying is like I've seen animals that were not ever blue adults that just ended up as these are usually really, really old animals. Like Forrest posted a picture years ago of a 30-year-old male that was very green, way, way into adulthood. But this snake was solid blue with a white belly. That white belly is a sign that they've lost yellow pigment. And it doesn't mean that every snake with a white belly is hormonal. It's just that's something that we generally see associated with females when they go through that shift and turn blue, just because they've lost yellow pigment and not because they just gained a whole bunch of blue pigment. And this stuff, there's not like hard rules with this. It's on a huge spectrum. And I'm just kind of elaborating on what Dave was saying, is like looking deeply at not only why does this snake look blue on this particular screen in this particular picture, but also like, why is this snake blue at all? And what he was saying about generations, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but and this is touching on what MJ said about people being able to use the label blue line, because it's hard to like put down a certain percentage. Like, oh, does it have to be 50% Walsh blue or whatever?
Yeah.
Look at Blue Boy that Dave used to have. Blue Boy was from my favorite designer clutch or designer outcross clutch ever. He was extremely blue. He produced extremely blue offspring very consistently. And he was at best 25% Walsh blue, because Blue Max, which I do believe was on loan from Greg Gibbs, you mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Blue Max was a pretty blue snake, but he had that kind of gray blue look. And he bred Blue Max to a Sauron PNG outcross female that was just very green. She turned hormonal blue later, and that was one of Rico's most prolific females. She produced that was 00111, I think. He had her and a sister that produced a lot for him. But you know, bred that blue Walsh blue line male, and I can't even remember what pairing Blue Max was from off the top of my head. I'm really surprised I can't remember that. And then he turned around and bred 05079, which was another snake from that clutch. So a blue line outcross with a green mom, that was on Rico's business card, and he was a mostly green snake with some cool black scales and a bluish kind of wash. That snake turned solid blue too as an adult. Mm-hmm. And he bred that to a Prada Manokwari, 09001. And that's what produced Blue Boy. And every single red baby from that clutch turned blue. There were bright red babies that looked like Manokwari. There were yellow babies in that clutch. There were dark brown ones in that clutch. All of the reds and browns went very, very, very blue as adults. And so, you know, and then Dave bred that animal that's 25% blue line at best to a Bushmaster Cyclops Sauron cross, who was just a hormonal blue, a female that was green as an adult. So now we're down to 12.5% blue line. And Dave, how many reds from that clutch turned high blue or solid blue? I mean, almost all of them?
No, I wouldn't say that. I have one that's really gnarly. It's really deep blue too, that you don't see very much. I kept 3. Yeah. And there were various degrees of blue. And then there was one that I gave to Chuck Vogel, because that was part of the deal when I bought Blue Boy from him. And that's the one that Anders ended up with. And that one was surprising, because as it was changing, it shifted not to pink, which is what you generally want to see. It shifted more yellow. So I thought, oh, that thing's going to turn green. But so to answer your question, I don't know how many eventually turned blue, but I know 4 that turned blue for sure.
For sure. And some of them, I mean, just really, really wicked blue. So there we're at most 12.5% Walsh blue blood. And here's the thing, in my opinion, since we're getting, like, time goes on, we're outcrossing these animals. There's multiple generations involved. But I have no problem calling one of those animals blue line or even Walsh blue line because the lineage ties back, and because the integrity of the blue has been maintained generation after generation after generation. Those are 100% blue line snakes to me, even though they're a bunch of outcross locality blood, and because a bunch of outcross locality blood is how this shit all started in the first place. And so the thing is, like what Dave mentioned before about green parents and green grandparents, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. We have multiple times seen two green snakes bred together, a million times seen two green snakes produce extreme offspring, but we've plenty of times seen two green snakes with Walsh blue lineage produce, one or a couple of blue offspring. But I don't recall ever seeing green parents from green parents with Walsh blue blood producing a blue. I've never seen it happen 2 generations away with two generations of green parents throwing in blue things. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but I can't think of a single animal.
I don't know. And maybe that could happen, but it's certainly not ideal. I mean, that's not how selective breeding works. If you're breeding a horse to be fast, you're not going to use parents that are slow, because I don't know. You want to get as close to blue as possible.
So Dave, like, for instance, can you remind me, Dave, that those two animals that Sock got from you, Chaos and Shadow, do you know do you remember the pairing that made those snakes?
Yeah, the female was the crazy snowflake female.
Yes.
That one came from the barn, and Crazy was from Daddy Pants, bred to, was it Tim Morse blue female? Is that where he came from?
Yeah, Tim Morse blue female. Yep.
And so Sock's already produced with those animals and made some fucking insane shit, obviously with a lot of blue. But like, for instance, like, you can't sell, or do you sell those animals as a blue line anything, or no? Like, or is it
yeah, I would for sure.
Okay.
100%.
And for instance, what would be the proper name to, like, if someone asks you what kind of blue line, what would you say to that?
I would just call it Trooper Walsh blue line.
Okay.
So I think he got some nice ones bred to a Cyclops.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patrick. Yeah, he did. Oh no, I was just agreeing with that, and also just to say that my point with what I was getting at about multiple generations is that if somebody's got an ad up and trying to sell a snake as a blue line animal, and its parents were both blue and it's not mature yet, regardless of it, if it's mature, if its parents are both blue, even if its grandparents were both blue and they're from strong Walsh blue lineage, yeah, like, throw out there that it's blue line. But if we start getting multiple generations away from anything that was maintaining the integrity of the line, like, yeah, maybe mention to a seller, or like mention that there is some blue line blood in there, but to call a snake blue line from multiple generations of green parents is just misleading at best.
And as quickly as things are growing in the chondro game, obviously more people, more problems. Like, people are going to not give a fuck and just abuse this term all they want. You know what I mean? Because not everyone's as passionate about, like, keeping shit the way things have been. And some people just need to make a quick extra dollar. They don't give a shit. They'll call it high yellow or super yellow, like that's even up there right now. You know, a $4,000 BIAC for that's being called a super yellow BIAC. You know what I mean? So mainly just as just kind of an education episode, so people understand, like, okay, like, at least what questions to ask. Because, dude, respectfully, people are coming to me asking, like, do you have any blue line stuff? And then
in here being like, let's take a look at MORPH market right now.
Yeah, and
I was like, no, that'd be bad.
Because here's the thing, dude. Normally, I mean, I have receipts of all this shit, and normally I would have it all put it up here, but I don't want to do that. Like, we all know it's out there. It's
the hosted episode of people critiquing MORPH market ads. Like, all right.
Oh my god. Now you're getting into the realm of the DMs that you two and myself share with Brian Fisher.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, do not trust this shit right here.
But, you know, but dude, mainly like Dave said, like, you know, being smart with your investment could, like, go a long ways, obviously, but it's easy to get fooled, you know, because obviously a lot of people are pretty impulsive when they come in, you know, especially motherfuckers who have, you know, ball python money, like a lot of it, and they're like, oh wow, their eyes get this big. I mean, we saw what happened on an auction, right, Patrick? You know what I mean? Like, shit could get crazy and out of control. And so, and that's kind of not what the Chondro game's about. Like, we're pretty in order, and like we're pretty fucking like documentation's everything in what we do. And that's why, like, if you're spending a few thousand on anything, paper trail should be nothing. Like, you should have all, like, go back to whatever it is that you got questions about. And that's also another thing that I know you guys are all good about, right? If you guys have a sell on something, and as deeply as your stuff goes back, if somebody has questions about that stuff, I'm sure you guys have no issues breaking all that stuff down to them and letting them know where a blue line's coming from, or, you know, like I said, you know, this investment part is everything, I feel like.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Patrick.
I just I think that it's a little bit tricky, because if something pops up for sale, like, you want to, I've told people this a lot, like, if you see a chondro that you like, you better pull the fucking trigger on it, because
that was serious. Holy shit.
Yeah. And but also there's something to be said for things like, I don't want to dive too deep on this, because I don't want to, like, be critical of the market or the prices that people charge, or the way that people sell stuff or whatever. But if something has been sitting for a long time, they're probably asking too much for it, because how many times have y'all seen me post anything on MORPH Market? Zero. I don't have a MORPH Market. So, like,
I don't see it.
And I occasionally have to post stuff in my story. And now, to be fair, I'm not producing like insane numbers of stuff, and I'm not saying that I have just the most amazing chondros or anything like that. I'm also I price my stuff differently than a lot of people do, and I have real good reasoning for the way that I price things. But if something amazing comes up, you have this, like, if you're not experienced, you're in this really tricky position, like, damn, I need to buy this right now before somebody else does, but also, like, I need to research the seller and find out how legit it is, right? So it's a tricky spot. It's you know, I do tell people sometimes, like, you know, hey, if you see something you like, pull the trigger, because on the rare occasion that I post something, I'll have people hitting me up for 2 weeks about it, and I'm like, no, that sold 3 minutes after I posted it. And but at the same time, that's a really good reason to, if you have money and you're ready to pull the trigger, you should already be researching every single breeder that you like, every bloodline that you like, every seller on MORPH Market, everybody that posts regularly on MORPH Market. Start getting history on them. Find out if they're a flipper. Find out if they're actually breeding the stuff, and start digging into that.
Yeah.
Then you can do like I do, which is be quick on the fucking trigger and well informed about it. And I still take, you know, doing that is still risky. There's risks involved with pulling the trigger real fast on anything. But, you know, if you start paying it, if you have an interest in this stuff, just be passionate and start digging into it and start learning. And that way you'll just have the most information possible when you choose to spend $5,000 or $7,000 or $500 on something. 500. I've had way more of my life than not. $500 was a fucking lot of money. A lot of money to me.
Yeah, still is to me. But it's crazy how things have changed. Like,
yeah.
it's pretty out of control. And, you know, Dave, no offense, the only complaints I ever hear about you is, like, people always seem to feel like they miss whatever you have available. But I don't know. I feel like not everyone has that issue. But do you feel like there is a way to approach available snakes for you other than the email availability list that you send out? Like how are you? Because obviously whatever you do is work, bro. Like you have no issue selling your animals, as that should be the case because how much work you put in. But, you know, for people wondering out there, like, I want a Dave D snake and I just can't get one. Like, you know, what do you say to that?
Well, the best way to get a snake, an extreme snake from any of us or the other breeders who produce them, is probably just to bug the shit out of those breeders, even though that's not what I want. That's why I do the list, because I don't want people to do that to me. But if they hit me at the right time, that's generally how I've been selling them.
Yeah.
Because
I like to say it a little
tough. Go ahead, John.
I like to say it a little different. I tell people, I said, those that show sustained interest eventually, right? I want to sell them to people that really want them. If you show up in Flutter
persistence.
and you have this big, long text, I mean, that's great, but I might not have anything. But if you keep hitting me up and you at a normal, sane person's rhythm, just check in every once in a while, right? Eventually, I tell people you'll see me post a clutch or something, and and I also tell people if you get shut out one time, I won't let you get shut out the next time. If they don't make it, then while I don't keep a list, of course, I still remember I remember all them fucking messages you sent me. You know what I mean? It's all good.
But the timing's everything, like you said, and like Patrick said, you should first and foremost, all the research of what you're looking to buy should be well done and over with. It's kind of like getting ready to get a tattoo. Like you already know you want this fucking thing, and then you pull that trigger when it's ready. Like if all the research is done, the money's there, like John said, and like Dave said, show the interest, dude. Be annoying, I guess.
I was really thinking about me buying my basins from Ed Marino.
Oh yeah,
I wasn't a basin guy, right? So I went to Ed and I sent him a message and I was just like, hey, I don't want to bug you at all, but I just want you to know I'm serious. I want to buy some from you. I'll have my money together. I live close. I mean, and I just spelled it out. I made it sound like a good idea. I was like, I live close enough that I can come and get the animal when you're ready. You won't have to ship it, and I'll pay cash.
Dude, you guys want to hear something funny?
When he said he was ready, I showed up. I just did it, and I actually just had the cash, and so I didn't show. And I didn't make it be like, well, can you please do a payment plan? And I didn't make it.
You can't do that with Ed. That ain't working with Ed, dude. And what's funny is God bless. He's a sweet guy, man. Ed's awesome. But I remember talking to him. I got
ready, and I fucking attacked it, and I got this pair. So.
Yeah, so I was not ready. I was exactly everything I'm talking about, what we shouldn't be doing. This is what I did. So I hit him up, and I hit him up on the phone, and I told him, I was like, Ed, dude, nothing. I told him nothing would mean more to me if I could get a basin from you someday. And then he told me, you come up with 17,500, I would take good care of you. And I was like, sure. Dude, I'll never get hearing that number. And mind you, I guarantee because if I had that kind of money, I guarantee I would have got something so crazy from him. It would have been insane. But $17,500. That's the first time anyone's ever said anything to me like that. I don't think I've ever even inquired about a vehicle for that much at that time. I'll never forget. It was so shocking to me how casual he threw that number out there. Because normally anyone who gets that opportunity, who's been around in the hobby, knows that's what you fucking need. That's the kind of pockets that you need when it comes to inquiring, basins from Ed. Because Ed's not going to sell you one basin. You're going to be buying at least a pair or at least three or something. And that's the way you have to come prepared. And I learned a lot that day. I really did.
You probably need to buy 7 or 8 of the fucking things. That it doesn't make sense to buy one gnarly animal. And then, because if it dies and that's a life-changing amount of money, then you're fucked.
Which a lot of people don't understand in the beginning, right? They don't realize, of course we all
I don't want to tell too many secrets here, but it's kind of like I bought those 2 females off of Dave's 2015 clutch, Mercury and Moonshine.
Yeah.
They were definitely a big spend for me at that time, as far as the collection being able. And that's another thing, is these basins, my collection bought them, right? And so it's a little bit of a self-sustaining creature now. And if I have a good year, that's where some of the money can go, is cool things like that. So I just thought I'd clarify that. Because Ed did share some big numbers like you were talking about, and they would make you choke, and it was so that wasn't easy to do. But what was I saying right before that? About just being ready, having if there's a snake you want, have not only the research done but the financial part of it well understand and ready to go. Well, yeah, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, of course, right. You definitely have to be ready for that kind of stuff. And
you're saying something about the females you got from me.
Oh, right. From a strategic perspective, that was a big spend at that time. And right, I hadn't had a lot of financial success or bukus, and I bought those 2 girls, and a lot of people were like, man, they were definitely popping off with 2 of these females, and posting them, I'm sure a lot of people, and that was 10 years ago, you know what I mean? And so that was a big spend, and I'm sure that got a lot of attention, but it actually was the right move, because I would actually say that now, because if you buy one female, I mean, you really are flipping the coin on if you're going to get a clutch or not. It's probably going to happen, maybe, who knows, whatever. But if you buy two, your chances of getting one clutch, which with those two girls, one is enough to more than clear the expense of the purchase and get on into the profit zone. And so I would actually say buying more animals, or in the case of a male, buying, or in the case of picking holdbacks, it's the same strategy. It's like picking two males and holding back. Like I've got these actually I've got three. I can't let go of them. They're too nice. These calico males. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got a fleet of them, but I'm trying to keep the faith that I'm like, I bet you one of them bitches won't breed with a shit. And I'll be damn glad I got one.
One of them's going to be fucking lame, and the one you sell will be a stud. So you got to just fucking keep them until you figure that shit out.
Yeah. So once you got the ability to do it, man, scoop up a couple of animals from a clutch, own a pair of sisters off a clutch. That's like kick ass, because then you can do cool ass line breeding and cool shit down, like if you're going to be a long-term keeper, that's kind of fun to do. So,
and of course, numbers is
strategic, I think.
And numbers is everything about what we're talking about. Like it's really ballsy just to really rely on one male or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish down the road, because dude, trial and error and like fucking up, like you could really fuck things up just raising up one animal, not knowing what you're doing, or the animal just not wanting to breed, like you guys were saying, or not even like maybe put on earth to breed. Maybe there's actually something fucking wrong with it. Like could be a number of things that are against you. But when you have multiple males or multiple of anything, that's on your side. But that's kind of what makes the reward so rewarding when you get to the point of producing shit and seeing it, because you went through some shit along the way. It's like not just raising them up, like you'll learn a thing or two. You know what I mean? And so and so let me ask you this, Patrick, because you had some things to say about during sound check about like how calico should be represented. And this is a huge thing for me to want to hear about, because I've, majority of stuff that I'm holding back this year is all calico stuff from Mark Hager. And I want to pull up one of the charts I got from Mark that shows some really cool, like deep lineage into like some like aqua girl, I believe. And so whatever, but I want to hear what your take is on calico, and how you feel like it should be presented, or what you meant by that earlier in soundcheck.
For sure. I want to say just a couple of really quick things about the things that were just said, and I'll get all into that. First of all, just a little shout out to Steven Saltzman giving me this shirt, because I thought about him just now when John said, both of you were saying to buy animals and raise them up. You guys want to like take a page out of somebody's book for building a collection and getting breeding going the right way, like Steven did it the long way. He started buying babies from breeders years ago, and look at the level of success that he's having, and he's joining the ranks of these guys right here, of people who have produced legitimately blue line chondros. Just one other thing about you saying the thing about Ed just throwing out numbers like 17.5 like it's nothing. This is really quick, but in the 90s, I was at a reptile show and Bob Clark was there, and I've told this story a couple times before somewhere, but he had one of the first two albino retics at that show, one of the first two captive bred ones. And it had a $15,000 price tag on it at the show. And I had known Bob for a little while. This is in the late 90s. And I kind of went up to him when nobody else was over there. And I was like, Bob, can I please just hold the albino retic for a second? And he was like, oh, yeah, sure, dude. And he picks up the deli cup and he hands it to me. And he goes, for $15,000, you can hold it all you want.
Bob, what a Bob Clark thing to say.
Yeah. So, and also So out there, fuck the haters. I love Bob Clark. I've known him for 30 something years, and he's my dude. But
a huge Bob Clark fan.
Anyways, I think I brought up the calico thing because I think that ties in perfectly to what we're talking about with the usage of terms. And this stuff that I'm about to say is just my opinion, and some people are going to be mad at me for saying this. A couple people that I love dearly, and one of them who's on the screen right now with us. But I think that we should be using the term calico line the same way we use the term blue line. And I don't think we should be calling animals calico if they're not an actual phenotypic calico. And those animals are very, very rare. I think that everything else should be called calico line. And just like we were saying with the blue line stuff, like, at what point do you stop calling it a calico line? Like, how many generations away from a calico does it have to be before we should stop saying that it's a calico line animal? So there's lots of guys that have strong calico lineage, like Mark Hager, in their collection. And Mark, with as much calico blood as he has, it won't surprise me when he's cranking out stuff that is incredible, that you can just look at Mark's stuff and say, that looks like a calico line animal, with some of the traits that you see associated with the siblings of calicos and the offspring of calicos. But they're not actual calico chondros by the definition that was kind of laid down by Maxwell in his book. And it's also interesting that lineage actually comes from the exact same place that all this blue blood does. You know, computer chondro, the original calico, like this, all that blood ties into the exact same pairings, which is fucking wild that those two very, very different things ended up coming from that, that blood. And it, in my opinion, has been shown that trait is not just the result of super mutts. Like, we've had individuals with those, like, it seems to be an actual, like, gene that's responsible for producing that. It's just not as simple as some other regular mutations. But, you know, like, there are real calico animals, and just for people who don't know, the word calico, like, that's a type of cat color, and it's used for a lot of different snakes. In green tree pythons, it's not the same thing as what we use it for in different snakes. Yeah. Calico and other snakes like retics or Dominican red mountain boas, those are animals that start out looking normal and lose a bunch of pigment, and they gain various amounts of white. And then there's animals like calico beauty snakes, Chinese beauty snakes, for example, that are born with the phenotype, but they're very pale and have lots of white speckling. So generally, it's like something that has lots of white on it, whether it's born that way or develops that way and has kind of a pixelated look. In other snakes, that's what we call calico. In chondros, it's a very different thing, and it's not like a simple recessive trait. Or, you know, in retics, it's not even heritable; they just pop up random. As far as I'm aware,
hey, Patrick, hey, your audio's full Marshall Mendez at this point. It's pretty bad. So,
really?
Yeah.
Go on, come back in.
Yeah, just X down, come back in. But okay, while we're waiting for Patrick, what do you, if you want to talk on that real quick, John, what do you think about what he said with calico, like, not being something that should just always be carry on throughout every animal produced, because it might not possibly be in a calico? Like, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with much of it. I guess I was just trying to think about, I was like, well, what do I do? And basically what I do is if the animal wasn't really showing, number one, I wouldn't use and this is just me, I'm a respect kind of dude. I wouldn't use the term associated with any animal that didn't genetically tie back to the line, to the animals that Greg worked with. That's just me. Other animals that are from different lines, again, that are from like completely different lineage. Let's say Insanity, Sandro's Insanity.
Yeah.
Again, I would be like with other guys, and I would, don't try to make an apples to apples comparison. The blue line thing is just a different type of slang that we're using there in a different way. The calico thing, now that kind of more is brand name, at least in my opinion, and should tie back a little bit to the animals that have Greg's lineage. And if I produced another animal that had a multicolored pixelated phenotype, I would want to call mine like the Insanity line or the Mosaic line or something. Or I would say like I'm working to I've found an animal. That's how a line can get started. Is you need a founder animal. And it's nice when that founder animal doesn't have to give credit to something that came before it. So it's a fluke. You don't have to say, well, this is really a trooper animal crossed with a lemon tree. And then I got this animal that I want to give it a new name and now start calling it my line. That's a little, that's another whole topic of discussion is when can you deviate off? And so like in Greg's case, it was actually a blue line animal and it had a multicolored pixelated phenotype. And then he proved it to be heritable. He started to demonstrate that he could get it to happen again. So if you had another animal, if you got a fluke founder, you cross a bunch of green stuff or a Biak with something and I don't know, whatever, and you get an Insanity. And it's like, man, that is not a Biak outcross animal. That is a designer. That thing has got the switch has been flipped in that animal. I mean, he's off the charts. I would want to describe him and articulate him as his own. And then, yes, I would be like, and we do absolutely need to get this thing crossed with the calico line, and I'd be like, heck yeah. Let's blend them together. Let's do mosaicos. That's what Pedro did, the mosaic and his calico girl and all of that. And so, I think, and the dream stuff, that's what Greg did now those animals, once they get crossed in, it's just to what level you want to articulate. And I think that that's great to be able to. And, but Greg crossed Cal Jr. which is really a bunch of blue line stuff all mixed together. And out pops these flukes. And then he crossed it to Daydream, and that's a dream lemon animal. So you start bringing in, and then they kind of get indoctrinated. Now the next animals are called calicos, and so in the case of calicos, I think that I kind of, the ones that don't have the good looks, I call them calico line animals. The ones that do have the good looks, I call them the calicos.
Yeah.
And I just try to keep that terminology isolated or confined to just stuff that ties back to Greg's stuff.
So let me ask you this, Patrick. Let me ask you this real quick. So let's say, for instance, you got a calico line animal, right? Like which the parents that snake's parents are fucking pretty extreme, but that snake not so extreme, but his parents are extreme. But then you produce with that animal, like let's say you're just doing a locality outcross with that animal, and it obviously the neonates look pretty fucking insane, like even more insane than that sire or whatever was, right? And if you could see some sort of like influence or something within the neos, and you hold those back, and they do turn into be something like calico and black. I mean, at that point, are you able to call that a calico? At that point, is what you're saying, or
well, I say that you can call those if you have an animal that's not a calico looking animal, but he has extreme parents from that lineage, you can still call that animal's offspring calico line because it's just 2 generations away from extreme animals that are like, that have the traits that we're looking for. But in my opinion, it should not be called a calico, just like John just said. If it's not a really extreme animal with the traits that line up with the description that Maxwell laid out in his book, then, which is pixelated, and generally there's a lot of black, and they tend to have a solid colored neck, and like he lays out it's open-ended because they're extremely variable. But there's kind of a set of traits that lines up with it. And then you can also see bits and pieces of that in the offspring and siblings of these animals to various degrees. So like those animals are all calico line, their offspring are all calico line, but it's not a calico unless it's a calico.
Yeah. And then if you were to find like some new fluke animal from Indonesia and bring it over, and changes everything. To make sure we tackle the other side of this argument would be the applying of the name to just some other completely genetically unrelated animal. Like, and there are people that are just kind of like, yeah, it looks kind of like the same. So, you know, I found me a calico, and I'm like, I just am in the camp of like, but why? Like, I get what you're saying. It'd be like if Pedro was like, I have found a Portuguese calico or something, you know, and I'd be like, but I mean, why try to muddy that? Why don't you?
It's just cool because it's different too. I wouldn't, if that was me, I wouldn't try and incorporate it. I would make it my own thing.
Yeah, but also, guys,
he did both.
The only people
Pedro
are there
did
trying
both
to
of those
misapply the thing, or trying to misapply it to like Biak outcrosses that are totally subpar and bullshit.
Yeah.
Anybody that finds a mosaic super freak is just going to be like, look at this effing thing I've discovered. Holy shit. You know, so.
Yeah, but what's interesting, guys, is like, man, it's I know we're talking about lines, but as breeders,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm a cusser.
You're like you have to apologize on this fucking episode. You're good, John. Don't worry. But anyway, it's like, so what I was saying is that you know, what's interesting, guys, is like, I know what we're talking about is, for instance, like line breeding and looking for something specific, but it's almost like we're looking for a morph that we're hitting in a sense, because, you know, from what I'm hearing, basically the way Patrick's explaining is you're going to have stuff that are displaying some of these calico baby traits that are like a fucking black Neo, or just, you know, no patterning on the neck, but then its sibling could just be just a regular basic looking red. And as they grow as babies, one will have the calico looking trait, and let's just say one just looks green. That's almost like calling something a het or a visual in a sense, isn't it? Like, you're almost like, okay, you can't call that a calico because it doesn't look like its sibling that's all like blacked out, but you could call it a calico line, but its brother you could call calico because.
Oh, and I don't really get all bent out of shape over that. I wouldn't even be, you know, I'm just, you know, I just kind of be like, well, you know, some of them in the clutch are more super, or just some of them are just super freaks and some of them aren't. You know, I just, again, it's all about just conversation and articulation.
It's the way that it's different from calling something a het is because if something's either het or it's not. Whether or not you can tell that by looking at the animal is a different thing. There are traits, there are simple recessive traits where the hets have clear markers for that trait, where like there's lots of examples of that. But sometimes the hets look identical to the ones that are homozygous. But the calico line, calico is definitely a heritable trait. There's no question about that. It's been shown over and over, but it is not a simple recessive trait. So it's not the same.
No, CHONDROS just don't work like that.
No, yeah.
Another reason I was thinking about this too. The other reason why I think it's the right thing to do to respect and confine and whatever what the word calico to those animals is. I mean, I think if we're all really honest with ourselves over the years, yes, there's been other super freak fluke animals, and yes, those have bred and almost in some ways proved to be heritable, but they've not shown to be as fiery as the calico line. Like, that shit is just potent. And it's almost like there's no thinning it out if you maintain and hold on to the pheno. As long as you pick out the hot ones and keep doing fun things with them, it's fiery and it's real potent, and it produces, you know, clearly those animals that are just on a really next level.
Well, that's my exactly what I'm saying about like Mark Hager's stuff as an example. Like, in my opinion, Mark doesn't have any calico phenotype animals over there, but he's producing all kinds of stuff that show those awesome traits that we see from that bloodline. So like, those are fully legit calico line animals, and with all the blood that he's got over there, it won't surprise me. I say it again, it won't surprise me if he pops out an actual calico over there.
I also think that the line over time has shown to be a little different. You know, I mean, I guess it's kind of like, you know, Greg may have had some written definition, but we see extreme black calicos and, you know, and extreme yellow ones. And it's, and I think that's the magic of the line. Like I crossed hot stuff to frostbite, and in the very same clutch, there's a really, really, really intense black one, and there's really, really intense yellow ones. And that's, and you could put them right side by side and be like, that's a brother and sister. And I mean, I'm talking clutch mates. That's
one of you two guys it may have been you, John. I can't remember. One of you two, maybe it was Dave. I don't know. Maybe it was both of you. Referred to calico as like an enhancing blood as well. That like if you breed calico blood into other stuff, it just kind of cranks up the volume. On,
yeah, that's what I call
it. On extreme traits, it just kind of like turns up the volume on that. Because we've seen a perfect example of that is the Velvet 09169 clutches. Yeah. All right. Velvet is a legit phenotypic calico. He's a fucking weird looking one too. And 09169, going back to blue line stuff, 09169 is a perfect example of one of Rico's creations that has very little Walsh blue blood, but is just fucking wicked and very, very blue. Although she's mostly hormonal. She's an animal that went high blue, and then as she started breeding, became, solid blue. She is from 05079, which is Blue Max Jarvis. And one of the, what was her dam? Was it one of the Vinsky girls?
Yeah, it was a Vinsky.
It goes, yeah, maybe 06012, I think. And if you guys want, we can make that a segue into the discussion of like other blue lines, like the Vinsky line. I have people directly asking me to talk about the Vinsky line tonight.
Hey, let's cut some commercial real quick, and we'll get right into Vinsky. Okay. All right, so guys, sit tight. All right, we're gonna go to commercial break, and then we're gonna dive right into the Vinsky blue line, because highly recommended topic. So get right back to you guys. Hang tight. One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor, it's Gary Scavino over at GS Reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Cheers. Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and plenty other arboreal snakes have been quite the popularity here at the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which brings me to today's sponsor, the Reptile Perch. Head over to the reptileperch.com and Reptile Perch on Instagram. See what type of design PVC perch is best for your arboreal reptile. But first and foremost, I would also check out David Brom's Green Tree Python availability on the website. And you can also check out his Instagram just to stay current on any projects or any productions that he posts. Thank you so much, David Broms, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to seeing what you have to show in the 2025 season. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available Green Tree Python wise, and be ready for quite the 2025 Green Tree Python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the Green Tree Python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the Green Tree Python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Treat. All right, we're back, and we are going to finally get the Vinsky Blue Line topic on the way here. And I'm excited for this topic, Patrick, mainly because I feel like my very first quote-unquote designer-type blood snake I got was that Vinsky Blue Line to a Biak girl. Right? And what's crazy is, like, dude, the homie who produced that snake, like, he's like, hey, like, I want to hook you up. Like, this snake's only $500, but he showed me a picture of the sibling, which I showed you, and I was like, dude, that's a sibling, and it was just an insane, extreme-looking neonate. And I was like, oh my god. And he told me, he's like, yours might not look as good as this as it gets older, but it has the blood. Like, you're gonna be able to make cool stuff with it. So that's why I always thought in my head, like, I always looked at this stuff as like, all right, if you know the parents and its sibling has intense looks to it, you could also produce that yourself, even though the snake is just green looking. And so but yeah, let's kind of talk about the blue line, the Vinsky Blue Line, and from what you know about that line, because I've seen some stuff that's pretty impressive, and let's hear it from you, bro.
Sure. First thing, you know, in your ads, you have that little clip of, it's just a quick shout out, but that little clip of Chris and Brian Susan talking to each other. How fucking cool are those two guys? Love those guys.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I'll finish up what I was saying about Velvet times 09169, since that was kind of the segue into the Vinsky stuff.
Sure.
That's one of the most consistent extreme pairings that I've ever seen. Like, that's becoming my favorite designer pairing. And we're starting to see some legit blue stuff coming out of that, and some animals that are like really strongly showing the traits that we see associated with calico line animals. And I have to admit that when I first saw Christian doing that pairing, because I have such a like sentimental attachment to the Vinsky stuff, and because I love the blue stuff, my first thought was like 09169 is one of my favorite chondros, period. I've said this on this show multiple times, but I had a picture of that snake in my locker when I was in prison, like, no joke. And so I'm sorry, say that again, MJ.
I said heavy.
Oh yeah. And I mean, most guys have pictures of their family or chicks or something in my locker. I had 05188, 05079, and 09169 in my locker.
I'm just glad it wasn't a dude.
So that when he put Velvet to that animal, I was a little bit disappointed. I'm like, that wouldn't have been my choice with that snake. But then we see the offspring, 2 clutches of them, and holy shit! Like we were just talking about, the calico can just be an enhancer. And man, what an amazing pairing! Every single snake that I've seen from those clutches have been ridiculous. But
yeah.
So quick history on the Vinsky Blue Line. Joe Vinsky was a really good friend of Rico's. Haven't heard from Joe in a while. I think I was one of the last people to actually in the community to be in touch with him. And I still have the last chondro that Joe ever produced. The last year that Joe produced chondros, he only hatched 1 animal, and I have that animal here. Got him in 2018. So Joe got 2 snakes in from Danny and Jimmy Gorman in New York. And they were juveniles. They were clearly poultry animals, so sorong or arfok or maniquari. As bold as the blues were, and with the look that they had, I kind of leaned towards them being from slightly further east, so maybe maniquari rather than sorong. But they told him, they're like, hey, these animals, these are really special. And so he got the pair. A lot of people don't even know that there were 2 of them. Everybody knows the Vinsky blue male. A lot of people don't know that there was a female that came with them. And she didn't turn as high blue as the male did, but she was a wicked snake, man.
Does this look familiar to you, this pair? I know it's hard to see because there's like...
Sure. So that male, that was a chick named Cassandra that lived in California that was doing that pairing. and that male was from one of the 2 clutches that Joe produced from his founder blue male. And this
Is that
male,
Nuclear? Was that his name?
yeah, that's Nuclear.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and Nuclear was insanely blue. I mean, insanely blue. So the blue male that he had, he produced 2 clutches with that male, and that male is referred to as the Vinsky blue male, or on Rico's site it was IMP period, which was short for import blue male. Some people call it the founder male, whatever.
Yeah.
He bred that snake to 2 females and got 2 clutches, and one of those snakes was an animal that was from OS lineage. We're not sure if it was OS high yellow lineage. She was a solid green snake that was a red baby. I mean, she was a very, very green snake. The thing is that, like, Eugene was producing so many chondros back then that there's just not a lot of like solid ID numbers. There's like tons and tons of OS lineage out there, like, that was not necessarily from his high yellow specific blood. So we don't know if there was any of the high yellow stuff in this female or not. We just know that she was produced by Eugene. That clutch did not produce any like extremely blue snakes, but all of them had this really nice blue wash. And most of the females that I saw when they were bred, they went really awesome hormonal blues. The girls that Rico had, when you looked on his site, he had a trio on the site, and they were his pictures on the site, they were solid green animals with just nice blue dorsal diamonds, but his girls went just completely hormonal blue. But yeah, like I say, none of those animals were very extreme, but they were all really nice. And those animals were used by people like Rico down the line, crossed back into wall stuff, etc., to produce really, really awesome snakes, which is really one of the reasons that we can call it a Vinsky blue line, because he had a founder male that was very blue, and those animals were subsequently, those offspring were subsequently used to continue to produce blue stuff. But the best results from the Vinsky blue male and the subsequent offspring were from crossing it back to the Walsh stuff. And so this is where, some of this stuff is kind of gray, like the lines get a little blurred, because the best blue to come from that founder male was because it was added to Walsh stuff, whether it was in Joe's second clutch or down the line, like what Rico did with it. But we still call it the Vinsky blue line, and there's really nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, because it's commonly accepted. We know what you're referring to when you say that. So the second clutch that Joe got was from the blue male and a Pygar Joan Collins female. And the Pygar Joan Collins pairing is an interesting one. That's another great example of like multiple generations and how these traits can pop up. Pygar was as green as they came. He was a solid green snake. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows, but I'm pretty sure that Joan Collins was just hormonal blue. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But all of the offspring from Pygar Joan Collins that I've ever seen all had a very distinct look. They all had this kind of teal, like bluish green look with really nice yellow diamonds. So Joe bred his founder male to one of those. She had that exact look. She was a tealish, blue-green color with yellow diamonds. And I can't say that I can account for every single one of them, but every animal that I've seen from that clutch ended up being extremely blue. I mean, really, really blue. Some of them, it wasn't until they were 4 and 5 years old, but really, really blue snakes. Most of them had wicked yellow diamonds, and we're looking at one of them on the screen right now with Nuclear. And
Patrick, from your knowledge, these were both Vinsky snakes right here, right? They're just one.
No, I think that female, she bred Nuclear to 2 different girls, and one of them had some OS lineage, but was largely undocumented, and the other one was just an undocumented like locality outcross female.
Right.
Yeah, and that's and there was some nice offspring from those pairings as well, and some of that blood is still floating around out there.
So John Vinsky's blue line came from a wild caught, obviously. Like that's where it stems from that.
Yeah, it was Joe Vinsky, and yeah, I don't think they. I don't know that we can say for sure that those were wild caught because they came in. They weren't neonates when they came in, so it's likely that they were wild caught, but they came in on the same shipment, and so there's a strong likelihood that that if they were farm bred, they were siblings, and if they were wild caught, they were collected from the same area because they came in directly to New York to Danny and Jimmy from the same shipment, and so again we're calling that stuff blue line. And Joe went on to produce, like he kept back quite a few. He did sib to sib pairings with the blue animals, but I honestly can't remember if any of those took. But he definitely got offspring from breeding half sibs together that were sired by that same blue male, and had pretty good results with some of those, but very few of them were like really extreme. There were a lot of them ended up with really dope yellow diamonds, like the one that Blaine posted a couple days ago, or the one that I have over here. But I just honestly can't remember if any of his took when he did the full sib pairings from the blue clutch. I have pictures of them breeding, but I don't know that he ever got offspring. And on the subject of $500 snakes for sale on the internet, Joe used to post those offspring on king snake for $750. And I bought multiple animals holdbacks from Joe for $500.
Wow.
In 2009 and 10.
What a time.
Yeah.
It's like when gas was $1.25, right? Not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I say, Joe produced a bunch of blue stuff from one clutch and some not so blue stuff from the other one. But because, and again, it was breeding to the Walsh blue blood that really did the trick. But people still accept that as being called Vinsky blue line because it's got that lineage in there. And so, part of the picture here is what we like commonly accept based on the history of this stuff.
And how many?
I remember what Rico called them.
How many clutches under John's belt was it before anyone started calling it a line? Like, do you remember how many?
I was just trying to think about that. I can't remember if Rico called them Vinsky blue line or not, because his animals were not all three of Rico's animals were not from the very blue clutch. They were from the OS line female. Rico and Joe were really good friends, and Rico got all those animals in trade with Joe. They kind of like swap back and forth a couple of animals. So I can remember it called the Vinsky blue line as far back as I can remember. I want to say those clutches of his were in 05 and 06 or something like that.
Decades ago.
So yeah, and if you like, I can touch on two other lineages that are not called blue line, but were very consistent with all of that, with producing blue animals. And because I think this ties into like, at what point can we call something a blue line? Around the same time, Dave Prado was producing his Manokwari stuff.
Yeah.
And I have never seen an adult actual Prado Manokwari, not second generation, but stuff that Dave produced. I have yet to see a single adult Prado Manokwari that was a red baby that was not at least high blue. I've never seen a green adult that was a red baby that Dave produced. I'm not saying they all went high blue. I'm saying I've seen a whole bunch of them. That pairing produced 10 clutches, something stupid. That pair produced a bunch of clutches over the years. Dave Prada produced multiple pairs with them. Then he sold them to Gary, and Gary loaned them to Rico, and Rico produced at least one clutch with them. And then then Rico sent them back to Gary, and Gary produced at least one clutch. They had to have produced at least like 6 or 7 clutches, probably more than that. And Gary has the most of that blood still represented in his collection than anybody else does. But unfortunately, and I feel partially responsible for this because I took my little 5-year vacation when all this stuff was going down and was readily available. But there were animals, there were males that were on par, you know, with a lot of the best blue line stuff, in my opinion. And now that's really an opinion. If we're like like if you put the two animals side by side with like an extreme blue line animal and an extremely high blue or solid blue Prada line animal, it's a very different type of blue. You can get more like electric blues from the wall stuff, but
Yeah.
As far as just being a beautiful blue snake, so that's the original Prada pair right there. This is a red male, yellow female. The Prada pair was purchased from Nerd at the White Plains show in like 98 or 99, and they were babies, and in my opinion they were siblings. I think that's why we saw such consistency in their offspring, is because those two were already siblings and were just a knockout genetic combo, because they bought those as babies from Nerd at the White Plains show. And so I really think they were farm bred siblings. They probably had a knockout set of parents that were wild caught, or maybe they just came from an imported gravid female or wild caught gravid female. But
yeah, because you got to explain this real quick, because exactly what we're looking at and what we're talking about, this is stock snake, and we all know this is a pretty familiar snake. That was an import. Look at that thing. That thing looks exactly like the Prada shit that we just looked at right now. Literally looks just like it.
Yeah, and so to me, if you had that snake's sister, you could produce some really awesome shit with that pair. I have that's one of my favorite chondros in the whole country is Starscream. And
but technically, if someone were to ask you what's the locality of that snake, you would say Monoquary, right?
Yeah, I would say he's obviously a poultry type animal. So yeah, Sorong, Maniquari, Arfok. Sorry, Kenny and Gary, but the Arfok is the same thing as Sorong and Maniquari. And but yeah, absolutely, definitely a poultry animal. I have one of his offspring over here. I got first pick out of the ones he released from that clutch, because I did the thing that John said without being too annoying. Just be persistent with your inquiry on animals, and Stock hooked me up, man. I love the snake that I have over here. But
what was it bred to? Was it bred to another Maniquari?
Yeah, a Sorong female, import red Neo Sorong female. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so pure poultry type, both from imported parents, and she wasn't anything crazy, just a green snake with blue dorsals, and not blue dorsals like his. Not that snake is. If you want to describe a snake as dripping in blue, like that's what I call dripping in blue. Like it's dripping is different from solid blue. But man, anyways, I think there's going to be some nice ones. Garrick ended up buying most of the ones that maybe all the rest of the ones that he made available. And he subsequently sold a couple males from that clutch. But the reason I bring up the Prada stuff is because it was so consistent that it would not have bothered anybody, I don't think, to start calling those snakes blue line, like Prada blue line Maniquaris, if we had done more work to maintain the integrity of that blood and be producing breeding back the best offspring. Because outcrossing those has gone on to produce some absolutely insane stuff, like Blue Boy that Dave used to have. You know, when Rico did the 05079 times Prada Maniquaria just had insane results, even with there being yellows in the clutch. And even the yellows ended up ridiculous. But one other bloodline that I'd like to mention, since in the beginning of the show, John mentioned, naming your own blue line and said the House of Blue line. Nothing against Garrick, but I'd call that Ed Bradley blue line if I did put a name on it, because Ed was the one that produced the founding stock, right?
That's where originally.
Yes, and Garrick has gone on to refine that with absolutely ridiculous results. And Garrick has actually, and I don't, it wouldn't be my choice, but I don't criticize his choice of not wanting to breed them to Walsh blue stuff or even Vinsky, even Prada blue stuff, because he wants to be able to stand on his claim of the integrity of the power of that bloodline without introducing those other lineages to it. And I respect that completely. But that's an example of.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could
100%.
Do both.
100%. That's why I say it wouldn't be my choice.
People made that same choice with Arctic Blue, and Arctic Blue could have been bred more.
Arctic. I believe
Mills had him. He wanted to breed, and he was breeding him to like Marukis and shit. And which, of course, at that time, those were some of these are Marukis. They had the solid stripe. They were the good ones were still being imported, and I mean these things were. People thought that stripe might be super heritable, and I mean they were going for big bucks. They were almost designer like. They were so flashy and beautiful. I mean a perfect white line. I mean some of the OG ones are great, and so he was breeding it to stuff like that. But that's like breeding a blue line to an Iru or something.
I thought that it was a terrible choice. We saw what happened when Rico bred that.
And he never opted to do any like trooper shit. And you're like, well, just do that too. I bet it'd be banging.
Yeah. And that ended up happening, but I don't think it was with Kirk. Arctic Blue was bred to
that animal.
Was she?
It wasn't bred very many times, I don't think.
What pairing was Tidbit from?
I don't know.
Was she Pygar Joan Collins? Whatever pairing she was from, there was.
I just remember that animal. And then I think the Sutherlands might, their website. Let me talk, Sutherlands, appreciate your work, but I wasn't able to, I can't figure out sometimes what they're like. It's not as clear. And I do think that they've bred him back to some of his daughters and stuff.
Well, yeah, and so there were
I think produced some nice bluish animals. I think that that shit would have gotten eventually built out to a nice little bloodline. Could have been.
I agree, and there were some Arctic Blue Tidbit animals. I used to have one that was really, really nice, but there was a couple Arctic Blue Tidbits that were extremely fucking blue. I mean, really, really blue. And I agree that early on there were some very poor pairing choices made with Arctic Blue. If it were me, this is, again, just like my choice, I would have only paired him to Walsh blue stuff, Prada blue stuff, or Cyclops females with any decent look to them, even if they were just nice wild type Cyclops, because it's not always easy to get really good.
Eox, or just, man, wouldn't it be cool if there was like 25 of his offspring around right now?
Yeah.
That you could just start to like work and mess with.
Do stuff with. Yes, exactly. And so same thing with Garrick's stuff. I understand why he doesn't, and respect why he doesn't want to outcross. But if it were me, I would do, like you just said, John, I would do all of it. I would keep some, with no introduced designer blood or other lines and just keep refining. And then I would do like Lupe did and breed it to something.
I mean, other people are doing it. Like, what's his name?
Yeah, Lupe bred one from Dave. And he got insane results.
Insane.
I saw those animals in person. Yeah, I was over at Lupe's house.
He's got nice. Some of the changelings are turning really nice.
Already, so he's got two that are already blue. It's wild, dude.
They're pretty insane looking.
I would think that stuff would link up nice.
But also,
I said so from the beginning. I said this is perfect perfect thing to complement that blood with.
So Patrick, in a sense, though, like what Garrick is doing is only to make sure motherfuckers can't say anything or take anything away from his point about the quality of blue you're going to get out of his animals, as far as mixing anything else in the mix, right? Like that's his.
Yes,
that's stands on that.
And look, I'll be a little bit critical of that
in Garrett's
lineage.
defense, he's got enough animals. He's not working with this like thread of a chance, like this like single founder animal. So he's like, I'm trying to build my own shit. I get that. That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and look, as I'm a huge fan of that lineage, the three that I've just mentioned, the Vinsky stuff, the Prada stuff, and the Ed Bradley stuff, I actually like all of those lines more than I like the Walsh Blue stuff, but not because I think that any one of them is better. I have like sentimental attachments to those bloodlines for various reasons, and I've had lots of animals from all of that blood, and I just really love all of those lines. And the animals that Ed had, there were not a whole lot of blue animals that came from Ed. Kronos was by far the most extreme one. So obviously the best one to use to try to refine it. But we definitely, and it hasn't been done, Garrick's not trying to call that stuff blue line, but it's only because of Garrick's work refining it that we could now at this point, once he's breeding back animals that he produced and they start producing blue stuff, we could start calling that Ed Bradley blue line stuff, or he could rightfully call it his own line if he wants to, because he's the one that put in the work to make it happen. But if he's able to start getting really good blue offspring,
it is a really good thing that those snakes got up and out of wherever they were and are being bred.
Yeah, I've said this before publicly. I'm real butthurt about it because I was supposed to buy Kronos and I dicked around on making him a good offer, and that his name wasn't Kronos at the time, but I'd been known Ed for a long time, and you know, I reached out to him when I got out of prison, and had a couple of, we were kind of rolling a couple of deals around, and he showed me this blue snake that he held back, and I was like, holy shit. I always knew that pairing was special. He did that pairing like 4 times, and Rico ended up with one that probably went really blue. I never got to see it as an adult. James ended up with one that was pretty blue, but the one but Kronos, out of like 3 or 4 clutches, he was the only one that was that extreme. And so I always knew there was something special in there. And yeah, I was a little bit upset that Garrick jumped in and offered him, well, a lot more money than I would have for that snake. So, but you know, he's doing great things with it over there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I keep daydreaming, you know, I mean, obviously this would have been possible because Dave D showed up to Trap Fest, but fuck, John didn't show up to Trap Fest. Patrick didn't show up to Trap Fest. If you guys were all here, Garrett, we all would have this conversation in person, just chilling in my backyard, fucking eating tacos and bumping fish. You know what I mean, John? You were missed, buddy.
I know. That is going to happen, and that is going to be freaking full circle awesome.
I cannot wait. Especially you, Patrick. I need to get your ass out here. I got so many places I need to go take Patrick to go eat because his like belief with Texas having better food than San Diego. Like, this guy really believes it. Oh man, I can't wait, man.
That's cool.
But listen, I want to kind of go around the board real quick. If there's anything you guys want to cover or talk about, I know we talked mainly about, like, you know, a majority of these lineages, but I'm going to start with you, John. Is there anything you want to cover tonight, or anything that's on your mind that you want to talk about before we end things?
No, not really. I think we did great.
You don't want to spill the beans about any projects happening right now, or any pairings you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 pairings so far that have bred. My male dildo has copulated a girl.
Nice.
Really,
Yay, dildo.
Yeah, I can't go.
Tell him the full name.
Yeah, what the full?
His full name is Big Black Sparkly Dildo. For the record.
What? What the fuck?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
This guy right here?
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
But that is what we joked around and called him.
Well, as a baby,
He was a
he
big,
black.
giant black neonate with white diamonds, and I was like a big black sparkly. To these guys, like off record, and so
woo! That was epic.
yeah, and then
Yeah, this is him though, right? Is this him?
yeah, we were just being knucklehead guys, and then Greg Waltz one day, like this guy had like a tear duct to swell up under his eye. When he was a neonate, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I depressed it, and anyway, I could, after you keep chondros a long time, you learn all this doctor shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he turned out fine. Anyway, and I was telling Greg Waltz about, I was like, "Man, dude, I'm kind of nervous, man. This the prized snake's got this tear duct under his eye." And he's like, "Oh no, not the dildo." And then that's where I shortened it. I was like, "All right, that could be the street name."
Oh, okay. Wait, I'm just curious. So, what caused it, or what was it that caused that tear thing that you were just describing?
Well, snakes just sometimes they get like a little tear duct or whatever. They've got these like ducts.
Yeah.
Right. And
lacrimal
this
duct.
can happen, if we want to touch on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can get this little bubble like underneath the eye cap.
Yeah.
And that can get real bubbled out. But in this case, it was almost like that, like the lid tissue, like between the eye and like the scales.
Yeah.
And that had a little pocket of fluid in it, some kind of little mild little infection. And in that case, I just depressed it. Now, the ones that get on the eye, that's like a tear duct. And what you do in that case is you rinse the inside of the mouth out on the roof really good with saline, and take like a wet saline soaked Q-tip and kind of
from the inside
rub in there and abrade, like just rub the shit out of the top of that mouth and rinse really good, and you'll knock that claw. And then you hold the snake's head, and with a nice thumb right on the eye, just put a nice firm, even pressure and just depress that inward. And dude, I've had it go, it make it like a faint audible sound of it coming loose. And the liquid come out and it drain.
Holy shit!
Yeah, and it'd be fine. It's
That's
nothing
crazy.
to freak out about, really.
I think Sock had a baby where it was coming and going, like it would come and go, like come and go, and he would go in with the syringe and he would just take a bunch of water out of it each time. But I don't think he knew about that trick from the inside. This was years ago. This was like 4 years ago when he showed me this. I haven't had to go through that myself. Have you had to go through that, Dave? You ever had to do that with one of your babies with the eye shit?
I've seen it in a baby that wasn't feeding, and it was dwindling, and I think it croaked. I've never fixed one.
David got time for that shit.
Yeah.
What about you, Patrick? You've had to deal with that, with babies before, with the whole eyelid or the pocket thing?
Yeah, I've actually seen it a couple of times in Amazon tree boas and green tree pythons. And
Wow.
if it's pre-first shed, I don't even touch it, because a lot of times it just sheds out with the first shed.
Right.
And there's two different ways that you can resolve it, as long as it's not an actual infection. If it's just fluid, you can do like John said, and sometimes that works. Or you can actually just go in perpendicular or parallel to the skull, and with a syringe, and just draw the fluid out from right under the eye cap. But that's delicate work if you don't have steady hands, and or if you're like me and know your way around a syringe, you can you might not want to try it that way.
I've probably had some that didn't go away, and the animals did. You know what I mean? There's probably been some that one or two, maybe one miracle, and then maybe others that that doesn't.
I've never had it be problematic, but I've known a couple people that have lost an animal that had it repetitively.
By the way, I cut that syringe thing, and you're a sick bastard. So, anyways, we're gonna continue. All right, Dave. Before we get to Patrick, because it's probably gonna be long. So, with you, Dave, anything you want to close off with? There's your topic on the on the top of your mind you want to talk about tonight before we land the ship?
Well, a couple of things talking about the babies with the fucked up eyes reminded me of another unusual situation. MJ, have you ever seen the chondros that look like sock puppets? Because they have a perforation in their lung, and then the air gets under their skin, and their fucking heads and the first half of their body swell up. I have to get you a picture. It's fucked. I had that happen to a female. They die, I'm assuming. Is that, do they recover? Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever saved one. You can pull the air out of them and probably give them antibiotics.
God, jeez,
it's fucking gnarly. Anyway,
all right,
we'll get you pics for that.
Okay, cool.
I would just reiterate that there's responsibility on both the buyer's part and the seller's part to represent snakes correctly, and on the other side to do a little bit of research. So I'd reiterate that. And then we spent a lot of time talking about the value of green snakes, and if you have to go that route, like we talked about, you want to get the snakes that are the closest in terms of distance removed from that phenotype. Like the parents were gnarly, but the babies are green.
Yeah.
And then if you produce from those, keep the entire clutch, because there might be a few winners in there. So you don't want to just sell all of them and then keep the two that you think are the coolest looking babies. You want to give yourself a chance, and then you can kind of breed your way into having some really gnarly shit.
Yeah. Like everything you find on this guy's page, everything you find on this guy's page is so extreme to the fucking 10th power.
And that's what Dave was saying. That's kind of what I did, that's where some of my successes came from, was I got don't wish the snakes into more than what they are. Don't buy some locality cross that somebody's claiming is something and wish it into being a blue line. If you want those or calicos, find out who's really doing it. Get as good a ones as you can, and then cross them, and there will be a gradient. There will be a spectrum in the clutch of quality. You know what I mean? There will be some that look like the parents, and there will be a couple in there that kind of had the little bit of the magic occur. That'll have a confluence of things, and they get the best of both worlds, and get a few outstanding ones. And if you keep those, you can, the next thing you get breed those, and you step your way, like Dave was saying. The next thing you got a blue snake on your hands.
But also, as much as you guys all know that there's no promises with whatever neonate we're assuming that's going to get extreme, it could not go that route. I feel like it's not common, but you guys, John, you've seen it before. You said that you've seen pretty dark neonates just kind of go a non-extreme
of course.
route. But then again, that's nothing against that project. And what I mean by that is someone out there saves up fucking how many thousands of dollars to get an extreme red that does not turn how extreme they thought it was going to turn. You could still get something else to breed that to that you could hopefully that's extreme and get some extreme results. You're not out of the game in a sense is what I mean.
No, it just kind of informs your next move.
Right.
You're like, all right, so now I probably
need to get something.
I bought 4 or 5 Neos, and I've got what I got now. I raised it up, and here are my results. And now to add to that, and probably through the process of buying those 4 or 5 neonates, you've built some decent relationships. You bought them, and so you could probably go back to those breeders and be like, all right, now the next round, you know what I mean? I want to buy a couple more. And I have people that do this. They buy a couple from me, and then they come back and we're like, all right, dude, I need a male. And I'm like, I got you, dude. You know what I mean? Because at some point, somebody's just got to look out for you.
Yeah, I know. All right, Patrick, send us home, buddy. What do you have? Anything you want to close us off with?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 things. One real quick, just to touch a little bit more on what Dave said about the responsibility of the seller.
Yeah.
It's okay if you have snakes that you're wanting to sell and you don't know how to properly label it. It's totally okay to find out before you post that animal.
I agree.
And look, you can reach out to me and ask me for my thoughts on how an animal should be represented and labeled before you sell it. And man, MJ knows this as well as anybody. I might not give you the fucking answer you want to hear, but I'm going to give you an answer that is largely unbiased and will keep you from getting in, well, having us talk shit about you in our DMs.
That is very true, man. And mind you, I feel like Patrick was the first one to ever break things down the way things should be broken down, because it's not as like, it's straightforward as some of these answers we get when we're searching for answers. Sometimes it's not always as straightforward as an answer. And so Patrick is definitely one of those guys to give you an in-depth fucking answer when you're looking for something such as a crazy question, but go ahead, Patrick.
So the last thing I'd like to say, I think this is a perfect way to close this out. I would just like to talk about John and Dave for a moment, because this whole episode has been about the blue line, and John mentioned early on about some pivotal moments, so to speak, some clutches, individual clutches that have kind of saved the blue line, because a lot of the places where these animals were, like Rico's collection and like Brass Jungle with Brad and Cass, like a lot of these things kind of dissolved for various reasons. And as we've seen many, many times, that shit could have just fucking blown away with the wind. And this, what I'm saying, applies even more so to the calico stuff. Like calico animals got bottlenecked hardcore for a while, and we almost lost that shit. And if it weren't for Christian and the Sutherlands and Dave putting in work to preserve those lines, they wouldn't still be here anymore, or there'd be a couple of geriatric animals hanging tails and having bad sheds for us to cry about before the shit disappeared. And while blue is something that we can bring out of the wild and refine at any point, we can continue to do that as long as there's still imports, but we'd be starting from scratch or with just one imported blue animal. But as far as the Walsh blue lineage goes, and preserving the integrity of those lines and continuing to produce the phenotypes that we all know and love and have this attachment to, there's quite a few guys that are doing it. But in my opinion, nobody is doing it like Dave and John are. And I just want to thank you guys for having the dedication and spending the money and the time and all the shit, all the effort that you guys have put in to preserve those lines and to make them even better and more consistent. I mean, you two guys are doing that. You're making those lines even more consistent than they were before for producing blue. And that's fucking amazing. And I appreciate it deeply.
Way to have the balls, boys. Way to have the balls. It's not easy, I know, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how you look back and see how things played out, because we were talking about Arctic Blue earlier, and I almost bought a Cyclops that looked just like him off kingsnake.com, and I was going back and forth with the seller. I was from it was like Global something in California, a big flipper.
Yeah, and, that dude was a douche.
Yeah, I knew it was sketchy, but I was like, oh, I need that fucking snake. And then I was messaging Brad at Bryce Jungle about a offspring at Sky that was pretty green. And I was telling him, yeah, I'm thinking about getting this other snake. And he's like, oh, you want the good shit. And then I got a couple of nicer snakes from him. So it's just, a lot of it is luck.
Yeah. The stars just have to align sometimes, and sometimes when you're just patient and keeping your head down, like things will land in your lap, but you just never know. I mean, I've heard people with some good luck and heard some people with not so good luck. It just, I don't know what to say. It comes the way it comes, but what a great fucking episode. Patrick, is that it? I feel like that was short, but you good? You got?
Yeah, no, that was it. And I will, this is kind of on the same subject, but I am hoping that my stars align, because I've got some couple of super top secret projects going on over here, and I'm hoping to
I'm sure you do, dude.
soon enough join the ranks of these guys producing some of this stuff that we're talking about. So really working on that right now.
Well, can't wait to hear about it and actually talk about it here on Trap Talk once it goes down. So
yeah, these lines that we're talking about, now that they are so fleshed out and incompetent hands and no nidovirus, and people understand those better, where it's just only going to get so much better. Chondros, like 5 or 10 years from now, are going to be out of control.
It's gonna be nuts.
I think of it like koi, because I know some koi go for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even $1 million. So it'll start to get like the best of the best is going to rise to the top. There's going to be a gradient.
Yeah, but you know, skimming through all your guys' stuff and even yours, Patrick. Like I was looking at some of your fucking older productions. Like, dude, like how much crazier can it get? It's already like, and what's crazy, it's going to get crazier. Like it's nuts. Like if you know, again, you go
being able to put these truly elite animals together.
God, it's gonna be nuts.
Now that there's enough of them, and you're able to like I've got a really high black animal that I'm like, man, what if I ever got a female that looked like that? I'm like, I mean, it's not outrageous to think that if I kept pairing the same stuff, that I'd get a girl to go with it. And I'm like, man, the idea of putting 2 of them together, and I'm like, man, that's not too far out.
And okay, what year is it going to be when we finally see a red neonate that never changes? It stays red. That has to happen at some point. You would think.
Yeah, everyone that's pretty close. He's almost 4.
And he's red?
He's reddish. Yeah.
Is he on your page?
I fully believe it's possible.
Yeah, I think he is on there. I don't know if it really shows how red he is.
Color the scale can change, it can stay there. You know, if it can hit that color, if it can achieve the color, it's just all about retention or failure to change or whatever.
What does this look like now, Dave? Oh my God, that
all fucking blue.
Oh, that is blue. So imagine something that just was an adult that stayed looking like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the blue on that one is actually softened because you saw the mother is a tiger stripe,
right?
So initially he came out extremely blue. I almost said super blue. He came out extremely blue, and he's interesting now. You can see some of the yellow coming in too.
Wow. Oh, all dreamy stuff, man. Well, listen, definitely. I've always been inspired by all your guys' work from the get-go. Patrick, you've probably been my biggest help in the Chondro game since the beginning years of everything. So it really means a lot having all you guys on the show at once. Mid-Atlantic Arboreals on IG. I said that right, John? Yep. All right. Yep. Vibrant Veritas on IG and Arboreal Obsession. Find all the links in the description below. This won't be the only episode. We got to run this back again, fellas. We'll do this again sometime. But that's all we have. So give it up. It's a wrap for Patrick, Domi, John, and Dave D, ladies and gentlemen. What an episode. What an episode. Thanks, all right. We'll continue this at Trap Fest next year, okay? Have a good night. Good. Later, boys. Peace. Damn, fire episode. I got to do these more. If you thought this was a good episode as well, before you head out and enjoy the rest of your week, make sure you hit that subscribe button, okay? Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, select all. You'll be reminded of every podcast released out of the network 7 days a week. Coolest reptile network in the world. That's a fact. Shout out to all the sponsors. Find all the links in the description below. Definitely going to replay this episode. I love learning. Learning's fun. The Chondro game, the best game in the world. See you guys here next week, and I'm out. Choo! Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and plenty other arboreal snakes have been quite the popularity here at the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which brings me to today's sponsor, the Reptile Perch. Head over to the reptileperch.com and Reptile Perch on Instagram. See what type of design PVC perch is best for your arboreal reptile. But first and foremost, I would also check out David Brahms' Green Tree Python availability on the website. And you can also check out his Instagram just to stay current on any projects or any productions that he posts. Thank you so much, David Brahms, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to seeing what you have to show in the 2025 season. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available Green Tree Python wise and be ready for quite the 2025 Green Tree Python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the Green Tree Python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the Green Tree Python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the Trap. Cheers.